Alright, Big E figure. I don't like you and you don't like me. But we've been putting off doing this unboxing for 2 weeks now. So let's just do this. Let's just get it over with. In fact, I literally sat down to do an unboxing 2 weeks ago and then realised it was Big E next in the series and not Yoko. And instead did nothing for 2 weeks. I've had some kind of busy weeks, but definitely had plenty of time to do some unboxings. Just really didn't fancy this one. Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we are doing NWOpening number 67, 68? Must be 67, because I'm well aware that when we get these finished, we're one away from 69. I'll have to think of something to do for that. Today we are continuing the Jimmy Hart saga. We are opening the Royal Rumble 2022 Big E figure. This is it's kind of interesting, but it's a bit of a mixed bag. We'll get into that as we go along. But yeah, anyway, we've got the Jimmy Hart arms in there and the spare hands. We've got the Big E in his I can't say I remember what year it's from, but the Get Well Soon Xavier attire, which we'll also discuss at some point. We have a bio on the back. Tampa, Florida, 5'11", 285 pounds, and his finisher is the Big Ending, Intercontinental Champion, longest reigning Tag Team Champion. I'm guessing it was Royal Rumble 2020, since it says that on the back. Again, we've got that little comic strip around his name. The Big E arms and hands. The Big E arms and hands. The Jimmy Hart arms and hands. So we need those Jimmy Hart parts, so we gotta get this guy open. This is probably the one in the set that I was like least excited about getting, because at least with Dakota Kai, it doesn't hurt to have some more female enhancement talent. I really have nothing for Big E. He also only has single jointed elbows for some reason, just to make him a little bit more mid. But, you know, because this set ended up being reduced so much, I ended up just getting it for Jimmy Hart. And isn't it just funny how this was the first complete wave of figures I ever owned, and they're all a bit shit. Apart from Yoko. You're doing God's work, Yoko. Although I suppose that is why I own the complete set, because no one bought them, so they became cheap. So yes, anyway, right, yes, we're getting into this. We're going to get it over with. Then I'm going to rant on about my various issues with this figure, which is a shame, because I think it would be my favourite Big E without the issues, because it's appealing, it looks good. That was an interesting move. I've just severed a bit of cardboard instead of the sellotape I was going for, but whatever. At least I remembered my scissors today. Don't often do that. Oh, it's even been a pain in the ass getting out the box. He's thinking, you know what, if you're going to insult me all day, I'm not coming out. Good to finally get this one done. Again, we've got the comic book panel, backboard, and then we've got the Jimmy Hart arms, spare hands, Big E's spare hands, and of course, Big E. Get his spare hands out. And Jimmy Hart's arms and his spare hands, which are tagged in. Oh joy, isn't that fun? Why are his hands tagged in? Big E's weren't. They were just moulded in. Right. Thankfully, the fingers themselves aren't like through a hole in the packaging, so they aren't bent like with every other pointed figure that seems to be coming out. Pointed finger figure that seems to be coming out. So we got the Big E here. There's a bit of a closer look at the front and the side view and the back and the other side view. And the first thing that I'm thinking is that So my main issue with this attire is that it was a one-shot attire, and it was a nice gesture at the time, and I can understand why some kids and some collectors would want that immortalized in action figure form. But when you're using this figure in a figure fed, it doesn't really work that well. You know, the get well soon Xavier attire doesn't really work. Imagine if you're using this Big E in your figure fed for multiple years. Is Xavier Woods just ill all that time? He's not going to get well soon if he hasn't. And the next bit of concern I have for this is that it's actually so much more ingrained on this attire than I thought it was. So I'll admit I forgot about the XW armband. I only really remembered the get well soon message on the side. We also have a picture of Xavier's face just under that. Another get well soon on the back. Xavier's face underneath that. The XW on the side. And some X's just above that. So yeah, that's, I mean, I guess you're pretending Xavier Woods is ill in your figure fed. Imagine if you're using this in the New Day with Xavier Woods. It's like, what, did Big E lose all of his other singlets? I know it's kind of like, it shouldn't matter if the figure looks good, but it's the single reason why I would pick a different Big E figure to use in my figure fed, because, you know, this is just going to look weird. The other thing is that I wouldn't have bought a Big E, probably, unless it came in a bundle, or it was really, really cheap, or I needed the Build-A-Figure parts. That being said about all this, I actually think the attire looks better on the figure with the way the white and the colours kind of pop than it actually did in person. I don't really particularly care for that kind of velvety style of it. Notice how he's wearing like a jacket there as well, which is no doubt also emblazoned in Get Well Soon Xavier stuff. But he doesn't come with that. In fact, he comes with no accessories at all of his own, which we're getting the Build-A-Figure parts, but we're also paying extra for the Build-A-Figure parts, and other figures in the wave do come with their own accessories. So that's another kind of neg. Like, it's just boring. You know, there's plenty of figures that don't come with any accessories. It doesn't mean that it isn't boring for them to not come with accessories. We've got the open grip hands, which, you know, I always like to see. The single jointed elbows. The double jointed elbows were in this set, if you haven't watched these previous videos or you don't know much about these figures. We did have double jointed elbows on the Earthquake and Dakota Kai, but we don't have it on Big E and we don't have it on Yokozuna. Why? I have no idea. But them's is the bricks. A lot of negative feelings going into this. But otherwise, if it didn't have Get Well Soon Xavier written all over it, I would love this Big E. This would be my favourite Big E because it's just really nice. It's nice and eye-catching, lots of really nice colours. The head scan is pretty normal. It's not got like a ridiculous open mouth mould or anything like that. It's, you know, it's fairly cool. It's fairly interesting. Is Xavier Woods supposed to have like a lazy eye on the back? Because he does. Like, I guess he must. That must be intentional, you know? Now, one of my fears has been put to rest with this figure to some extent, because I'm sure I remember my friend showing me pictures where the scale of him was way off. But in retrospect, that could have actually been showing that Earthquake was way too big. But I was pretty sure that this Big E was really, really small. I'm sure he showed me multiple things of that. But if you compare it to my older Big E, they're actually more or less the same size. The older one is slightly taller and doesn't actually stand up perfectly straight because of its loose legs. But it's not that bad, you know? So we'll compare it to like another figure. We'll find someone who is also supposed to be 5'11", and we'll see how he stacks up next to that. So the Road Diggity Dog is 6'1", or should be 6'1", so should be slightly taller than Big E, and I would say he is. I mean, I guess the figure kind of looks smaller as well because he's so kind of wide. He's kind of a compact frame, you know, he fits a lot into his 5'11" frame. I wouldn't say that that is particularly bad. Road Dog is slightly taller. I would say that's probably about right. So that's put one major concern of mine to the side. So it's just the Xavier Woods attire that's the issue with this figure, really. Now we can get into the joint check. So first of all, the head is lovely and tight. It turns, it doesn't have that weird thing which some have where you turn it and then it like really slowly, like it's not clicked into place and it just really slowly pushes itself back, which is really cool. It's a very stiff shoulder, but it's movable. Like it's nice and firm, but it's not stuck. So that's good. Bicep swivel is all right. Single jointed elbow for some reason is fine, and that hand is fine, albeit for the time being. The arm doesn't sit remotely flat against his side. I mean, I just put his hands on his hips, I guess, because that is not going anywhere. He's a bit too bulky for that. The other shoulder, that's less firm. That one comes straight out. It's actually a little bit loose on the swivel. It's not something I see too often. Biceps fine, single jointed elbow is fine, and that interchangeable hand is fine for now. The torso joint is really stiff. That's really tight. So that's fine. That's cool. That's cool. The waist is maybe a little bit loose. It gives me concern that it would get more loose over time, but yeah, it's probably the loosest waist I've seen for a very long time. And the leg is fine. Knee is more or less fine. And the boot cut is cool. Are his toes gonna move? No. Leg up. That one doesn't seem to go as high. Knee. And again, you kind of get the same feeling with these legs. That boot cut's a bit loose. And you get the feeling with these legs that just moving them over time, they're going to eventually end up like this one, where he can't really stand up without his legs sort of spreading apart. And he can't really hold himself up, like he can't really walk because his legs just don't have any. I don't know if these are like hollow or something to save plastic, but yeah, they just become soft and loose over time. So to summarize, I mean, you can see here we've got a bit of paint where a bit of botched paint on the upper leg there. We also have some marks on his thigh. But overall, I would say that as a review, this isn't as bad of a figure as I thought it was going in. Now that we have realised that the scale isn't that bad, if bad at all. You know, that was a big concern. The attire is way more of a problem than I thought it was. But at the end of the day, we're just going to force some use out of this anyway. Do I think this is the best figure of all time? No. Do I think it's the best Big E figure of all time? Also probably not, but it's probably up there just for being more interesting and having a more sensible head scan than most. And what I like to do to finish my figure unboxings is talk about what this guy's going to do in my figure fed. Now, put simply, I didn't have any plans to use Big E in my figure fed, but I'm stuck with this one, so he's going to be enhancement talent. I can't see him ever getting any kind of push, at least not in this attire anyway. You know, maybe give him a funny gimmick where there's some joke about Xavier Woods having food poisoning and then, I don't know, getting like dive bombed by a bird or something, and you know, like every time he comes out there's another silly excuse as to how Xavier Woods is ill, but he's only like slightly ill, or it's like a really stupid reason. I'm kind of using this to get use out of it in my figure fed, theoretically, because I kind of resent having to pay for it to get the Jimmy Hart parts, of course. Now, he has been in DSW before. He was in the DSW Rumble. This one was. And I did a spot where he belly-to-bellied Lex Luger's coat on the outside because Lex Luger threw him out. But I don't really have any plans to use him after that. It's just my roster was quite shallow at the time. That was 4 years ago. Good God, I have done nothing with my figure fed. And, you know, I've gotten umpteenth amounts of figures since then. Probably close to like 100 that need unboxing. All of this lot, all the ones under my bed, etc. There is no real place for Big E in my fed. Not that I don't like the guy, it's just I don't particularly care for him as much as I do other people. And now, on to the final part. The most important part for me is we get our Jimmy Hart body and we desperately try and ram the arms in. And after that, we are on the Jimmy Hart finale. It's not getting them in the hole, it's getting them to click in. They go in fine. Getting them to stay is another matter. There really must be a better way for doing these Build-A-Figures, guys, because you can't get them together in the first place, and then you definitely can't get them apart again after. That'll do for now. It's probably not in correctly, but it is in. So as long as it's in, it's staying in. Hopefully it doesn't come back out while I'm trying to get this one in. Yep, again. Oh, no, it's not staying in that time. Fair play, Floodlight. Can't argue with that one. Again, it's in, so it's going to stay in. But I do feel like Jimmy Hart needs a pointing finger. I do feel like that's, that's a change we're going to make. God, look at the length of this video. This is an NWOpening that I didn't even particularly care about doing. And I've rabbited on for so long that it's one of the longest. There we go. So, now we just need the head. So if you enjoyed this video, please do like, comment and subscribe. Check out the NWOpenings playlist in the end screen and the other parts of this series so far. And stay tuned for the Yokozuna unboxing, which should come next. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye. Of course, the ideal solution with Big E to combat not being able to put his arms down is to put him in a permanently gyrating pose. But unfortunately, he can't do it because he only has single jointed elbows.